Hi everyone, my name is Elias Chafloque and I'm very happy to be presenting at the Outlier conference. One of the hottest topics at this moment is climate change. We see it in the news, in social media, in the movies, and here we are not going to question it, but instead let's see what we as organizations and individuals can do about it. So for the next few minutes, let me show you what my company and also myself have been working on. Some of you might know Robio, which is famous for our Angry Birds games. At the moment, my favorite game is Angry Birds Journey, and I play it on my phone when commuting or when waiting for my boss for our meeting, as he's usually late. I work with the data teams and I got the chance to collaborate, in this case, with the social responsibility team. Robio pledges to be carbon neutral by this year. Our business is digital and we acknowledge that it also consumes natural resources, mainly through electricity. So we have a huge commitment in reducing every negative impact, minimizing in this way our footprint. But that's not all we can do. It is not enough just to minimize our footprint, we want to maximize by handprint, which means that we could use our position in users and followers' reach to raise awareness to combat climate change. How to be carbon neutral? The first step is to calculate our carbon footprint. That involves calculating the CO2 emissions coming from all our different streams. Once we get our carbon footprint, we can become carbon neutral by compensating this amount through good quality carbon credits. Carbon credits should be bought from trustworthy sources that offer additional and certified carbon credit projects. Projects can be something ranging from wind power to planting trees. So to calculate our carbon footprint, we will need to calculate our emissions from different places. Starting from the offices, we have to check their electricity, the heating, water, waste. We might also check into employee commuting. Some people might come to the office by train, by metro, by car, the flights, the IT equipment, also our YouTube and social media viewers' carbon footprint. But the most important, and that's where we will focus mainly, is the player's device's carbon footprint. Because through pandemia, we haven't had that much consumption in electricity. There's less people commuting to the office. There's less business trips. But our players remain the same. And that's our biggest part of the footprint. I have to mention that we work also with a third party that we will verify our calculations are compliant with the Universal Carbon Accounting rules. Players' devices' carbon footprint. To make it clear, every time someone plays one of our games, we will consider the emissions generated by the device of this user during the time played as a part of our carbon footprint. And as every presentation has its boring part, this one is not the exception. We have to do some calculations. But this is actually what this presentation is about. And this calculation applies if you have an app or if you are a famous YouTuber. So help me run the numbers. And what do we need? We need the time played by our users in a year. We need classified by device, which can be phone, tablet, PC. And we need also the classification by country. On the other side, we need to know how much our devices are consuming in an hour. Note that this is in reality can vary a lot because not all the phones consume the same. The user phone settings and the application running will influence as well. We can get public sources from the device manufacturers. Finally, we need the emission factor for grid electricity, which will vary per country. This factor will allow us to convert electricity consumption to equivalent CO2 emissions. Coming back to the device consumption factor. In our case, we have some lab test data with more realistic consumption factors for our games. And luckily, our games consumption is similar compared to each other. So we assume that all the games we have are the same, and we also tend to overestimate just to be in the safe side when concerning which device type we're taking into account. And coming back to the emission factor for grid electricity, this information is available on the internet. Generating electricity can produce more emissions depending on the country. And as you see, it changes year on year. There are a lot of efforts to reduce this factor in the future. Calculation goes like this. We identify a group sharing the same device type and country and multiply the time played in hours by the device consumption and the emission factor. Let's take an example. So let's suppose we have 1000 players playing 1 hour per day non-stop during the year. This will make us 365,000 hours played. Now we multiply it by the device consumption and we will get 2920 kilowatts hour, and this amount multiplied by the emission factor will give us 1176 kilograms CO2 emissions in the year. This makes 1.176 tons, as 1 ton is 1000 kilograms. So bravo, we made it. But well, what is it a ton of CO2 in a year anyway? This is an important question because I realize that at this point I'm a little bit lost. So it is good to make a comparison to get a better idea. For example, my carbon footprint is around 6 tons, but I assume that the other years might have been 8 tons because I haven't traveled that much during the last year. Person living in Finland, for example, I live in Finland, it's 9 to 10 tons in a year. Person living in US is 16 tons. And a person living in Peru, where I come from, it's 1.7 tons. And we can see it in a different way. Return flight, London, Los Angeles, it's 1.65 tons. So it is at this point that we realize that sometimes a return flight might be even more than the full consumption of the year of someone from South America or Africa, for example. So in the previous example, we calculated the carbon footprint for a specific group. So now imagine all the possible groups, all the combinations, countries, device types we could have. And we estimate that it should be around 5,000 tons of CO2 for 2021, our player device's carbon footprint. In this case, I must say that we're overestimating in some cases. But yes, the important thing is that, okay, now what it is 5,000 tons of CO2. So that led me to think, and then I realized that it would be nice to represent it in some kind of visualization. So that's what it will be the next part. So this is the visual project. It is not finished yet. It is still in progress, but I wanted to show you how it looks like. This will be available internally, so my colleagues will be able to explore the data by themselves. It might be shown in some of the screens at the office, and I still have some time to improve it, so let's see how this will end up. If you have any questions, any technical questions concerning how I have done this, please feel free to reach me. I will be glad to help. So I'm mainly using WebGL, 3JS, and D3 for the visualizations. In the background, you see the main visualization, and below you see a bar chart that works as a selector. I can do some brushing, and this selection will affect the main visualization. Here I have like a distribution by countries, but the idea is to add more and more selectors so we can have a better granularity. Coming back to the numbers, we mentioned that the player's device's carbon footprint for 2021 will be around 5,000 tons. And of course, this number I think we're overestimating a little bit due to some grid factors, but it is always good to overestimate so we can overcompensate. And anyway, this number will be reviewed later as well. So the main question is, what do these 5,000 tons of CO2 really mean? So now I'm seeing just a visualization on the globe, but it will be more interesting probably to do a comparison. So here I already have a volumetric view. So each block represents 1 ton of CO2, and I can still do selections, and the visualization will update. We mentioned some equivalent before, so we realized that it is the same as the emissions of 326 people living in America for 1 year. We mentioned Finland, so we can have also an equivalent, so 507 Finnish people, which is almost the number of employees that Rovio has. I could choose India, and we have much more blocks because their carbon footprint is lower. And yes, so for example, we mentioned also about flights, and here you will be able to see that each luggage represents one person flying from London to New York, go and back. And if we want to assume that, okay, let's say 500 people enter in a plane, then we will have like the full flights. And we can have also as many as comparisons as we want. So the idea is that, I have already a developed component that I can do as much as comparisons as I want. Just need to add some 3D object and a coefficient, and then I can simulate an equivalent. So if you have any example that will be more interesting to visualize, or that will be more interesting to see, please give me a feedback for that. And yeah, this is mainly the visual project I was talking about. Okay, now what do we do as individuals? We follow the same steps. We calculate our carbon footprint, and we compensate it. We should always try to reduce our consumption, and we should always ask ourselves if the lifestyle we have is the correct one. But now, how do we calculate our personal footprint? It seems very complicated to calculate. And not speaking for Rovio, but speaking for myself, I use an application called Compensate that is available, at least in Finland. I think it is a great application because I will have to fill a form, and by filling this form, it will calculate my carbon footprint. So I will give information about the size of my apartment, about the heating, about my transportation, if I fly a lot or not, if I use a car or I use public transportation. Also about my diet, if I eat a lot of meat or I am vegan, and also if I like shopping or not, and so on. So by gathering all this information, it will try to calculate my carbon footprint. What is great about this app, it is that it's calculating at the same time I'm filling the information. So I really can know how a small change can affect my carbon footprint, especially with flights. So if I decide that I won't travel, I will reduce a little bit my traveling, then my carbon footprint changes a lot. And the other interesting thing is that I can see, I can compare the average of, for example, with Finland or with other countries. So I can know like if my carbon footprint is above or not some averages. So it compare me. So that's very good. So once we have our carbon footprint, we can compensate. So the application will propose to do half compensation, full compensation, We can double the compensation, so it is up to us. The price of the tone is like 28 euros, and that we will pay it monthly. So it is some kind of subscription. It's like having Netflix, for example. And so the most important thing is that we get visibility about the projects that are going on. For example, there's a project concerning my home country, Peru. So I can read about it, and also it has a lot of information about climate change. So I can follow and I can be up to date. So I think there are many calculators around in internet, so you can play with them. It might be that there are also some other apps that offer this compensation thing. So it is good for you to have a look around. I really recommend it. Thanks for your attention. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and I'm asking you already to calculate your personal carbon footprint and try to compare it. Is it above or below the average of your country? And also, please compensate it if you can. Of course, compensation helps, but what will do the real change is to adapt your lifestyle. So if you realize that, okay, your carbon footprint is above the average, so please try to reduce it. Companies should also take the lead, so they should be more socially responsible when taking decisions. Well, thank you all, and I hope this presentation will raise some questions and opinions. Thanks.